And now the reason why you all attended Assembly today. It is a great privilege to have on our campus for the first time a gentleman who's been a natural health advocate for his entire life. He is the founder of the most looked at natural health site online, Mercola.com. Please put your hands together and give a warm Life University welcome to Dr. Joe Mercola.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you. It is great to be here. First off, I have got to congratulate you on your wisdom for picking the best chiropractic college in the U.S. So congratulations. Now, about 40 years ago, I started medical school, and I'll never forget one of my professors tell me that what you learn, what we're going to teach you in the next 4 years, 75–80% of it will not be valid when you graduate. So what we're going to teach you is not so much the facts, but we're going to teach you how to learn. And I'm so grateful he did that, because it helped me understand and appreciate that it's all a journey. It's a life learning process, and you never stop learning. So one of the great tools that you can use to continue that learning process postgraduately or even now is the website. So how many people here get the newsletter at Mercola.com? Well, if you're not, you may want to continue or consider doing that, because it's a great resource, no charge for it, of course. Now, the other thing I want to impress upon you is that once you graduate and you're successful, and you go out and maybe you earn a lot of money, that's great. But I want to guarantee you, there is not a micro doubt in my mind that biology doesn't care who you are, who you know, or how much money you make. And I'm sure you get that because you're coming to life. So it doesn't matter, you've got to know these. And that's what I'm going to try to, 45 minutes is not a lot of time. And, I'm giving like 4-hour lectures now. So I'm going to compress the highlights. So there's a lot of information. I'm just giving you the highlights, though. So one of the things that catalyzed me a few years ago is the issue of cancer. We have 1,600 people dying every day in the United States. 1,600 people every day. Tomorrow, the next day, yesterday. So that's an interesting fact. Now, one of my lifestyle habits that I use to stay healthy is, at first, I moved out of Chicago and now live in Florida, the Sunshine State, and I walk on the beach virtually every day for around 90 minutes, sometimes 2 or 3 hours. And you're saying, wow, how could you do that? Well, I'm reading. So last year, that's why I justify it, last year I read 150 books. So who here would like to know the best book I read last year? All right, that's enough people, I'll show you. This is it, Tripping Over the Truth by Travis Christofferson. It's really the best single book I've read that really catalyzed my journey on this process to dive deep into mitochondrial function. And it's a good one. And he based his work on Thomas Seyfried. But it's not just cancer. It's also, 2 in 3 of us are overweight, right? 1 in 3 are obese. 1 in 3 of us have heart disease. 1 in 4 are diabetes, probably going up to 1 in 3. And 1 in 4 American adults over the age of 40 are on statin drugs, which I believe there's almost no indication for a statin drug. So, the point of this slide is, of course, not to discourage you with all the down information, but that there is light at the end of the tunnel. So what I want to talk to you today about is probably what I perceive, and I've been passionate about nutrition for 3 decades, and I got the basics initially, but just recently understood that your body my body, every one of our body is designed to burn fat as its primary fuel. And just looking out at you, I think most of you are doing that. But in the population, you know, it's like probably less than 5% of the people are doing this. They're burning carbohydrates. And that doesn't make sense considering that 95% of your energy stores are fat. Only 5% is stored as glycogen in your liver, some in your muscles too, but that's only used locally. So the key is to get your body to burn fat as a primary fuel. And there's some tricks that you can do. Oh, and there is my book that I wrote that's not out yet. It comes out next month in about 4 weeks or so. It will probably be a #1 New York Times bestseller. I'm pretty confident. We've already sold like 60, 70,000 books. So it's good. But anyway, the purpose of putting it up here is to let you know that the details that I'm going to talk about are in the book. Some of them aren't. There's some new information I've learned since then I'm going to share with you in a little bit. So the reason you want to burn fat as your primary fuel is not necessarily to treat cancer, because I believe that is a foundational treatment for treating cancer. You know, with 1,600 people dying every day, 1 in 2 American males, 1 in 3 American females coming down with cancer in their lifetime. And I'm not talking about skin cancer. I'm talking about serious, deadly cancers. There is not one person in the room, and I challenge anyone to raise their hand that doesn't know someone personally who has cancer. So this is a big deal. But it's not just cancer. It's heart disease. It's diabetes. It's neurodegenerative disease, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, autoimmune disease. It's all of them, seizures. In fact, this approach has been used to treat seizure disorders for over 80 years. It's proven. This is the best effective strategy to treat what's termed drug-resistant seizures. And it works. So why does it work? It works because of this magic fat molecule called ketones, which I'm sure everyone here has heard of. So what the heck is a ketone? First of all, what isn't it? It's not dangerous. A lot of people are confused about this, especially a lot of medical professionals. They confuse it with DKA, diabetic ketoacidosis, completely different animal. It's not the same as nutritional ketosis. They're made in your liver, and they're, interestingly, they're HDAC 1 and 2 inhibitors. And HDAC is a histone deacetylase inhibitor, which is a very potent way to improve your antioxidant system. Because you don't have to take antioxidants necessarily. Your body can make them. And also, the reason you're taking antioxidants is that you want to lower the oxidative stress. Well, wouldn't it make sense to make less oxidative stress? And the way you do that, it was by choosing the right foods. So the magic of ketones, and this truly is metabolic magic, is that when you're burning ketones as one of your primary fuels, they burn far cleaner. They create far less reactive oxygen species, ROS, and as a result, you have less secondary free radicals, which can damage your mitochondrial, cellular DNA, membranes, proteins. So it's a big deal. Now, these reactive oxygen species are sort of the waste product of burning fuel. When you transfer oxygen or electrons to the electron transport chain in the mitochondria, which is this whole thing is about. The whole purpose, the reason that you're using fat for fuel is to optimize your mitochondria, which of course are the cellular powerhouses that create the ATP. But they do things other than that. Now, when that fuel, and see, you know, the food that you eat, the proteins, the fat, the carbohydrates, they're really a source of electrons, and your body takes that. Your cells don't magically absorb the food, right? They have to digest it, but they break it down to basic products, and they transfer these into the Krebs cycle and the electron transport chain in the mitochondria, and eventually you get some. It's not 100% efficient. There's some pollution in there, and that pollution, some of it is normal. It actually serves as really valuable and important signaling molecules. So if you indiscriminately take large amounts of antioxidants, you could actually screw your body up. So it's better to make less oxidative species and take it that way. Now, one of the fastest ways to get your body to burn fat for fuel is fasting. Who here has fasted? Wow, that's a pretty high percentage. Congratulations. It's a powerful tool. It's not something that's required. If you're relatively thin, you probably don't need to do that. You just go on the diet that I'll talk about in a little bit. But for most people in this country with 2 or 3 people overweight, this is a powerful strategy to sort of kickstart your system into burning fat for fuel. And the best book written on this topic is The Complete Guide to Fasting, written by a nephrologist, Jason Fung, who's out in Toronto. And I actually interviewed him, so if you want more details, you can go on my site and watch the interview. Or you can get the book. So the way that you do this is to actually do the program to get your body to burn fat for fuel is to restrict the amount of carbohydrates you're having and to keep them below 40 grams. Maybe even lower, 20 grams. So that means like no grains, no starchy vegetables, limited fruit, but unlimited green vegetables. So that's pretty well known. But what's not known, and most of the people who teach low carb or promote it like paleo, but I suspect they do here, is this pathway. Now, have they taught you the Mtor Pathway? Who has been taught the Mtor Pathway? Who knows what the Mtor Pathway is? Guy. What's going on? This is an important pathway. This is probably the most important metabolic signaling pathway in your body. Probably more important than insulin and leptin. God, we got it. Next time I come back, we got to put this in the curriculum. So it's short for mammalian target of a rapamycin. Hey, listen, when I went to school, we didn't learn it, but this thing has been known for about 15 years now. And don't feel bad, because I can almost guarantee you 90 to 90% of practicing physicians have never even heard of this. Okay? But it is crucial. It's absolutely crucial. It's currently called mechanistic target, or mechanistic target of rapamycin. Rapamycin, as many of you may know, is a cancer drug, one of the most effective cancer drugs. It was discovered, named after the island of Rapa Nui, Easter Island. And this thing works. How does it work? Would you like to know? Yeah. All right. Well, my slides are out of place. But essentially, it works by suppressing apoptosis. Have you heard of apoptosis? That's cell death, right? It's this cleanup mechanism your cells have to get rid of things. And when you activate mTOR, it's like activating insulin or leptin. In other words, high levels are not good. You are going to radically increase your risk for cancer and most all the degenerative diseases I mentioned. So, what does that mean? What's the most potent stimulus for mTOR that we know of? It's protein. Protein. Specifically branched-chain amino acids like leucine, isoleucine, and valine. So the bottom line is, the other thing the other disease that some people are viewing this as a disease, and I do, I'm one of those people, that it affects is aging. So most of you are pretty young, and but 40 years from now, this is going to become a concern for you. But wouldn't it be nice to slow down the age, put the brakes on the aging process now, right? So the way you do that is by paying very careful attention to protein levels. I'll get more specific in a moment. So, because when you have too much protein, it's going to decrease your lifespan. The other thing that mTOR is responsible for is something called mitochondrial biogenesis, which is your body's ability to reproduce mitochondria. And you have a lot of mitochondria. You know how many mitochondria you have? Take a guess. 10, 20? Who says more? A lot more? A billion? Trillion? Who says a trillion? Who says more than a trillion? It's a quadrillion. Each cell, except for your red blood cells and your skin cells, has several hundred to some have several thousand. More mitochondrial dense tissues would be liver, kidney, brain. So it's really important to reproduce those puppies. So you want to limit your protein. This is a number you may want to write down. It's a really important number. It's 1 gram per kilogram of lean body mass, and I know most of you know how to calculate lean body mass. So that's not a lot. You know, it's 40 to 70 grams of protein for most people. Now, the key to figuring this out is that you can't just guess. You can't, you got to actually be precise. So there is a there's a nutrient tracker called Chronometer. Has anyone heard of that before? Chronometer.com? It's who's heard of MyFitnessPal? Well, a lot more. That one is a piece of junk compared to this. You want to know why? It's like user-generated data. So any one of you can go to MyFitnessPal, put in a thing, and lie, and put the incorrect information, and then it's available to the whole universe. Do you want to use that, or do you want to do something that they don't allow you to do that and only have the real data? So Chronometer.com is free, just like Chronometer, C-R-O-N-O. And then you get a kitchen digital scale and measure your food. And this is something you don't do the rest of your life, but you do it for a few weeks to get an idea where you're at, to get the ratios. It's got a really cool graphical user interface, and you just can't understand this by guessing. And there's actually a section called chronometer.com/Mercola, which is specifically designed for ketogenesis. Now, did they teach you about insulin here? They did? All right, how does insulin work? Tell me. Someone tell me. Come on, you guys are smart. Okay, how does this work? Okay. Has the cells, essentially drives glucose into the cells from the blood. That is what almost every health professional believes. The problem is, that's not correct. And I took a 24-hour blood glucose monitor from Dexcom, that measured my blood glucose every 5 minutes. Because I was serious about this. I wanted to do this myself. I'm not promoting something I didn't try. And through trial and error and friends who pointed me to the literature, I realized that's not the mechanism of insulin. Insulin works. Its primary mechanism of action is it slows down your liver's ability to make sugar, a process called hepatic gluconeogenesis. So, what does that mean? It means when you have low insulin levels, your blood sugar rises, which seems to be paradoxical, right? But most people don't get low insulin levels. Most people have high insulin levels. I mean, insulin resistance is epidemic in this country. But when you seek to implement this program and do ketogenic diet and do the fasting, you will get your insulin levels low, and in fact, too low. Which is why I came to the conclusion that you just can't do chronic ketogenic diet. It's just not designed, it's not healthy. It's a very powerful intervention, which is a short-term intervention to catalyze you or your patients into burning fat as your primary fuel. Once you burn that, or you have adopted that metabolic flexibility, you can burn fat or glucose. And when you burn fat, how many people have tried the ketogenic diet? So a good percentage. For those of you who have, then you'll know that there's two amazing, almost miraculous things that occur. One is you have mental clarity. You can just think like you're on steroids. And then the other is that your cravings for junk food and carbs disappear. You're just not hungry, or you're hungry at appropriate times. Like you could comfortably sit in front of someone who is having your favorite junk food, or pizza, or cake, or whatever, and you could be just fine. It's just like trying to exercise iron willpower and resist it. It's just phenomenal, powerful stuff. But you don't want to do that forever, because once you get your insulin levels too low, your blood sugar will actually rise. And interestingly, if your insulin level is too low, you could have like fruit or even a piece of cake sometimes, which is obviously not a healthy source of carb, but say yam, a sweet potato, and your blood sugar will actually drop, even though you're having like 50, 70 grams of carbohydrates, which is crazy, isn't it? But it's all due to the understanding of the proper mechanism of insulin, of how it really works, which is suppress hepatic gluconeogenesis. So, actually, let me get back here for a moment. I love this thing. It really works. So this is a term called feast-famine cycling that I came up with, which means once you reach the level of burning fat for fuel, is your primary fuel, then once or twice a week, you want to have more carbs, healthy carbs, of course, and more protein. You don't want, it's the same thing with carbs and protein. I gave you the formula for the ideal protein, right? Well, you don't want to do that permanently, because that will get you sick too. So once or twice a week, and I'm absolutely confident you're being taught this here, you need strength training. And those are the days that you want to stimulate mTOR, kick it up. And you can maybe even double it if you're young and you're competing, but you don't want to do that continuously. It's very dangerous. No question in my mind. So you guys are pretty bright. Does anyone here have flax oil at home? That's a lot of you guys. Okay, could you promise me to do something when you get home? All right? First, think of a relative or a neighbor that you don't like and give them the flaxseed oil. You should not use flaxseed oil. In fact, you shouldn't use any vegetable oil for the most part. There are some fruit oils like olive oil, which is a little bit different. But vegetable oils are one of the primary culprits from a nutritional perspective of why our culture is sick. That's why Ansel Keys, anyone know who Ansel Keys is? You taught about Ansel Keys? Okay, he's a nutrition researcher in the 50s that started the low-fat diet. And it was started because there was an epidemic of heart disease in the first half of the 20th century. And it was from fat. But it was from the wrong fat. It was vegetable fat, primarily vegetable oils that were industrially processed and heated and contaminated with very significant metabolic toxic ingredients. But flax oil is, of course, a source of omega-3, but there's nothing wrong with flax seeds. In fact, I have flax seeds virtually every day. I have a tablespoon of organic only, and I soak them overnight and put in my smoothie. So those are good, but that's like any seed. You want to have healthy, and you need omega-6 and omega-3, but you don't want to get it from an oil. So here's a list of some vegetable fats that you can use, because you can do ketogenic being a vegetarian or even a vegan. Kind of harder with vegan, but you can do it. These are some of the oils, and all of these, of course, are vegetarian sources. So I travel a lot, and would anyone, well, actually, it has nothing to do with traveling, but we know how many people eat avocados. A lot of people? Most people, right? They're kind of pricey. They've been like $2 a piece, right? So who would like to know how to cut your cost of avocados in half? Would you like to know that? All right, well, we'll talk about it next time. No. The way you do that is you wait till they go on sale at the grocery store. Well, wait. It gets better. And then you buy 30, 40, 50, 60 of them, right? And you buy them rock hard green, so if you threw it at a window, it would go right through. And then you put them in your refrigerator. And so, how am I going to use that? Well, you have to be a little proactive, and 3 days before you want to eat them, you take them out and put them on the counter. And in 3 days, they will be ripe. So do you like that? All right. Oops, let me go back here. So some of the other things. Raw cacao butter is it's one that most people don't know about. It's really useful, healthy saturated fat. That's what they make chocolate out of. Macadamia nuts are probably the single best nut. Would you like to know why? Because it's really low in protein, really low in carbs, and really high in fat. Exactly what you want. It's probably the most nutrient-dense snack you could possibly have and take with you. If you're traveling or something, macadamia nuts. So normally they're kind of pricey too, $18, $19, $20 a pound. Would you like to know how to get them for $13 a pound? I mean, you guys are students. You got to have these cost savings expenses, right? Well, you partner with one of your buddies, and you go to a place called nuts.com, and you buy 25 pounds. And you get, hey, I go through 25 pounds of macadamia nuts in less than 2 months, maybe 6 weeks. So it's really good, because I was, ordering the 5 pounds, but you can it's a significant price reduction. Seeds are also good. I use black sesame, black cumin. Pecans are the next best after macadamias. Olive oil is questionable. 80% of the olive oil in this country is not good. You watch the 60 Minutes section on that, or a previous articles that I've written on, or a book called Real Food, Fake Foods by Larry Olmsted. It goes into the details of that. It's good if you can get healthy olive oil, but most of it isn't. So there's animal fats too that you can use. The best butter you can get is organic, pastured, raw butter. So I don't think that's legal in Georgia. But you can get Kerrygold, which is pretty much mostly grass-fed. It's from Ireland. Now, DHA is, without any question, the single most important fatty acid in your body. It is the only fat that when you eat it, it's not burned for fuel, because your body desperately needs it. So it integrates it into mitochondrial and cellular membranes primarily, and into the brain. The brain is a high percentage of DHA. And a lot of people, especially vegans, think that you can get it from animal or plant sources like flax or chia or hemp seeds, but the conversion from ALA to DHA is really low, probably less than 5%, maybe even less than 1%. So you're not going to get clinically useful levels. So you have to get it from real food, like seafood. And I think ideally it's not supplements. If for whatever reason you can't do seafood, then supplements are an option. I believe krill oil is the best because of the phospholipids attached to it. But then you've got fish oil, which also works, but is relatively significantly inferior to krill oil because of it doesn't have the phospholipids. It's in a triglyceride form, and you get the fish burp because of that. You can't digest it as well. So the best food sources would be very small fish. 3 best that I know would be sardines, anchovies, and fish roe, which have really high sources of DHA. And then Alaskan salmon, certified Alaskan salmon, and mackerel would be other sources. So this is one of the most important fuels in your body. When you have enough DHA, one of my passions is sun exposure. And DHA, when it's integrated in your cellular membrane, will actually stimulate the photoelectric effect and help convert those photons to DC electric current to charge your body up. And if you don't have DHA, it's not going to happen. This is essential. You've got to have DHA. There are tests for it. Actually, wait. There are tests for it. The omega-3 index is probably the single best test. All right, I'll show you this one. This is my high school senior picture. What are you laughing for? Now, this is actually what it looked like when I was in med school, when I had hair. So the reason that's up there is to remind me to tell you about exercise. And exercise increases mitochondrial biogenesis. It does it through a molecular mechanism called PGC1 alpha. It's the most potent stimulus, is PGC1 alpha, to improve your mitochondrial numbers. Really important. Oops, wrong way. So, if I had more time, I would go through a really cool exercise called the nitric oxide dump, which would be take you through 3 minutes of a really cool exercise. But most of you are pretty fit, but it's a nice little strategy to get increased nitric oxide release. But sitting is the new smoking, of course. So you want to make really careful attention. It really almost devastated my life because I had switched over from seeing patients to working on the internet full time. I was sitting at a desk 16 hours, and as you can imagine, it devastated my back. I had chronic low back pain. I had seen a large number of chiropractors and physical therapists and massage therapists and did stretches and strengthening exercises, but nothing worked until I stopped sitting down. Now I hardly ever sit. Now, today I sat for 2 hours on the flight up here, but normally I will sit for 15 minutes or less a day. Sometimes I don't sit at all. So you want to move too. It's not just about exercise. It's not just about not sitting or just standing and sit. It's about movement. It's about moving around. Your body needs constant movement. 7,000 is the BAM. That's the bare ass minimum steps that you need, okay? You probably need closer to double that, like 15,000 steps. So your phone, all of you have smartphones, I'm sure, and you can actually use it for free. They have step counters on there that will use your one of the sensors in your phone to count the steps pretty accurately. So you don't have to do it all the time. You don't have to be obsessive about it, but just get an idea what your normal movement patterns are. So another strategy to reduce reactive oxygen species, oxidative stress, which is valid for at least 50% of the people in this room, is that you have too much iron. You have too much iron. I'm highly confident of it. So which 50% are they? The men, you're right. It is the men. Because the women are losing blood every month. Most of them. Almost all of them. I mean, unless you're postmenopausal or surgically menopausal. So when I had graduated med school, my residency program, I was actually, I don't know if you know this, I was a paid speaker for the drug companies. They would fly me around and I would talk about estrogen replacement therapy, because back then we thought that estrogen was the reason why women had less heart disease, but it wasn't. In fact, in the early 2000s, they had definitive studies that just proved that and pretty much put a nice little break on that disaster. So it appears as due to iron. And studies show that people who donate their blood 2 to 3 times a year, which is the best way to lower your iron, you don't need to take a supplement, have actually lived a significantly lower rate of heart disease and cancer. So this is a great book that talks about it, Dumping Iron, written by a journalist, not a physician or anything. But the simple way to test it is a serum ferritin, which interestingly is the same units and measurements as your vitamin D level, 25-hydroxy D. So serum ferritin should be 40 to 60 or so. And if it's too high, then you could just have a therapeutic phlebotomy. You can donate your blood, but 50% of people can't donate for a variety of reasons. The older you are, it seems like the likelier are they won't be able to do it. So, other important factors. And then actually what happens metabolically when your iron level is too high, it's usually high in the inner mitochondrial membrane, and there's a part of that electron transport change. One of those reactive oxygen species is hydrogen peroxide, which normally gets catalyzed to water. But if you have high iron, it goes to hydroxyl free radical, which is the most deadly, potent free radical we know of. And in a moment, I'm going to tell you something that works even worse than iron, that almost every one of you have on you right now. Okay, we're into it already. This is not in the book. I mean, there's a sparsing of this, but I've developed within the last few weeks. I went to one of my mentor's lectures in New Jersey last month, and he just kicked me in the head, meant intellectually, and I realized, gosh, I've known about this, but I never deeply and fully appreciated it. And I'm hoping I can convince you to embrace this concept, because I can guarantee you, not a micro doubt in my mind, that this isn't significantly impacting each and every one of your health. And very few people understand this. But this is non-native, meaning artificial EMF, because EMF is healthy. That's what we're designed. That's the sunlight. So not all EMF is bad, but it's the non-native. It can be divided into 3 categories. Magnetic, which is what we typically think of, but we don't think about these other 2. Electric, and that actually is more accurately called EMI, or electromagnetic interference, or dirty electricity, which I'm not going to have time to go into today. And then also microwave radiation, which is your cell phone, which is a huge, huge issue. So much so that in June, 2 years ago, the World Health Organization classified it as a 2A carcinogen. They're a pretty conservative group. Who is saying it's a carcinogen? So it is, and I just really understood this within the last month or two, that it is actually a mitochondrial poison. So it works by, well, what is microwave EMF? It's from your Wi-Fi router, your cell phone. Oh, darn. I'm going to run back and get it. I'll be right back. Okay, I forgot to bring this out here before. This changed my life, this little meter. It's called the Acousticom 2, because it helped me understand. Unless you can visually see something, you can't feel it. Some people can, the canaries can, but most people can't feel cell phone radiation, but you can measure it. I'm going to turn this thing on. It's actually pretty good in here, guy. Yeah, I try to get a Wi-Fi signal here, not Wi-Fi, my cell phone. This is actually pretty low, but because you guys aren't using your phones. But this is actually pretty good. But you can get one of these and you can put your phone on and turn it on, it'll blow up. It's like crazy. So this helps you understand, like when you're touching your phone, you're connecting to this radiation which is screwing up your mitochondria. It really is. It's the reason why a lot of us get sick. Because if you were exposed on a regular basis to these non-native EMF fields, and you're not mitigating or mediating it in some way, you're going to increase your risk for developing heavy metal or toxin poisoning that you can't get rid of. You've got to address the EMI first. And then you also get parasite infections. These are huge. I'm sure you talk about detox, but it's really, really difficult to detox the poisons out of your body and treat the parasites unless you've mediated this. Would you like to know how to do that? Would you like to see how I sleep at night now? Okay. That is a Faraday cage. It's a fiber that's made out of cotton, copper, and silver. And when you put this, you can go outside the cage and this thing will be bleeping like crazy. You go inside the cage, it's silent. It essentially shields you from this. And so while you're sleeping at night, you can sleep in this electromagnetically free environment that allows you to more fully, carefully recover and recuperate. This is an important thing, I think. We're in the process of figuring out how to make them more widely available, but that is a good strategy. Now another carcinogen, I forgot to talk about, what's the mechanism? Well, when you're exposed to this and you connect with this electromagnetic interference, your body makes peroxynitrate, which is more significant producer of hydroxyl free radical than even high iron levels. That's why we believe that's one of the primary reasons why it's causing this damage. And there's dozens and dozens of studies. I just read one with like 200 references on this. I had no idea just until like recent, like last week. Oh, so the other thing is GMOs, glyphosate, another massively dangerous thing. It's a class 2B carcinogen, which is even worse. That came out in March 2015. Actually, get it mixed up. I think this might be, yeah, they're both bad. So vitamin D, you need to get it from the sun, ideally. You know, you're here in Atlanta now, so it's a pretty decent way to do that. I know it's hard when you're going to school, but ideally you get it from exposing your skin to the sunshine. I have not taken or swallowed a vitamin D pill in probably 10 years, and my vitamin D level is about 80. Because I made a conscious effort to make sure that I'm outside getting sun exposure. When you fake your body out and artificially raise your vitamin D level, vitamin D is a marker, it's a direct marker for UVB exposure, which your body utilizes for a variety of reasons. And when you tell it, you give it a signal that's not correct, you're confusing it, and I can assure you with the highest degree of confidence, it's less than ideal. Now, does that mean you should never swallow oral vitamin D? No. People do need it. It's better than nothing, but ideally you get it from the sun. Okay. So, you know, I walk on the beach, I told you, I read 150 books last year. And 90% of the people that I see on the beach are not doing it right. Why? They're wearing sunglasses. The last thing in the world you want to do on the beach is be wearing sunglasses. You need that radiation in your retinas. It really helps support it. What you don't need typically is radiation from these types of lights. These types of lights. And there's some in here, the ones in the back, if you can see that, those are the fluorescents. Those are dangerous suckers, I'll tell you. And I'll show you. Is there a is this a pointer? I don't think, if it's a pointer, I can't see it. Normally, it's really unusual in the last year, hardly anyone sees me on this stage without glasses on. Because almost all the light is dirty. This is clean, I measured it, and I'll show you in a moment. The first one, I don't seem to have a pointer, is sunlight. You can see the spectrum there, right? Second one is incandescent. See that curve, what it looks like? It's full spectrum. You can see the whole analog spectrum in there. Then you got the fluorescence, which are really bad, and then the cool white LEDs, which are probably even worse because they have this massive peak of cool white. Now, a lot of people don't realize, but halogen is real similar to incandescent. See how it's really low in the blue. The blue is a damaging one, very damaging, when it's unopposed. It's not damaging when you have it in the sun, like over there in the daylight, because it's balanced with the red and the near infrared and the mid infrared. And that's, blue light exposure will cause reactive oxygen species, especially in the retina. It's responsible for producing melatonin, but it's balanced with the restorative repair capacity of the near and the red and the near infrared and the red. So would you like to see what the spectrum looks like in this room that you're sitting in right now? Would you like to see it? Okay, I'm showing it to you. That's it. I just measured it before we came in. Now, you can see that looks like an incandescent bulb, doesn't it? But what you can see also, there's two peaks, right? Those two peaks are coming from the fluorescence on both sides. So you know there's fluorescence there, because otherwise it'd be a straight line graph. But that's pretty healthy light, which is why I'm not wearing glasses. Now, the other thing that you need to do, I know you're students, so I'm going to give you a little bargain tip again, you know, because I was a student once, is the pair of sunglasses, reverse sunglasses, that you can get for $9. Only problem is it's a really hard store to get it on. It's called Amazon. And they're called, I believe, they're red laser light goggles, and they're $9. And they're red. Red is the best. You've heard of the blue blockers, right? But red is even better because it also blocks out the yellow and the green, which can also impair melatonin and melanopsin production. And this is just another example. You can see the peaks. The red is the incandescent, this nice clear slope, and you see those darn spikes, which are so unhealthy. And I'm telling you, if you don't convince your patients, and we don't convince the culture, there will inevitably, invariably be an epidemic of age-related macular degeneration, the leading cause of blindness currently in the United States, but the vast majority of people as their age are going to be blind due to chronic exposure to this type of stress. It is damaging your retina. Your visual acuity would go up. Flew up on a plane. I sat next to a woman who's 73 years old. She didn't use glasses. She was from like Finland or Norway because she had this natural light exposure, okay? It will almost, you got friends, relatives, parents, they have reading glasses after 40, right? Why? Because they're being exposed to this unnatural light. This is the light you need in your house. Although after sunset goes on, when the sun sets, I put on those red glasses, even if I have these bulbs. They're my safety. I watch TV with them. It's interesting. You can watch TV, and you're watching it in red and white. Not black and white, red and white. This is another important principle. We've got grounding, and especially if you're grounding correctly with the sun exposure, you're getting this whole photovoltaic circuit because the photons are positive, the grounding is negative, and you get a really profound biological effect. Fluoride, you want to make sure it's out of the water, almost all municipal water. Fluoride is another mitochondrial poison. It's a dielectric blocker. It prevents the sun from charging your mitochondria. See, infrared, near infrared specifically, at about 850 nanometers, and red at about 660, catalyze and energize the cytochrome C oxidase in your mitochondria. And you can do magic with them. I've got a $30,000 K laser. In fact, I have two. But there's this infrared lamp that the security illuminator, Amazon, $69, that seems to be just as good as this laser. And it's like got 192 LEDs, and you put it on there. It's helped people treat Alzheimer's, reverses people's takes them off of the kidney dialysis transplant list. So it's pretty cool stuff. It's a security illuminator from Amazon.com. So actually I finished on time, so I actually have 2 minutes. So any questions? Yes?
Modified organism can handle, or do you want me to start over?
So what's more dangerous? It's not glyphosate, it's glyphosate.
Is it glyphosate that the genetically modified organism is like meant to withstand, or is it the actual GMO that's worse for you?
Well, there's a wide debate. I think it's the glyphosate. Glyphosate means, the gly is short for
Students, please stay in your seats till Dr. Mercola is done. This is a request from both myself and Dr. Riekman. Thank you.
So the glyphosate is short for glycine, so it's basically a glycine analog, and it devastates your cells. It is nasty, nasty stuff. And so many people believe, Stephanie Seneff being one, who's an MIT researcher, that it's one of the primary contributing factors for autism and a whole variety of other diseases. It's bad stuff. So, and the problem is that we're spraying like 5 billion tons a year, I think. Not tons, pounds. That it goes into the atmosphere, so we're actually raining glyphosate. So even if you're growing organic, there's going to be some contamination. And actually, we have on our site a way that you can test your own urine. But if you're eating clean, it should be good. So I think we have time for one more question. One more brief question. All right. Yes?
How would you recommend that a vegan would get the DHA in their diet?
How would I recommend it? I would recommend a vegan, unless they had serious ethical concerns, and they were doing this for health reasons, to really reevaluate that, because I think it's not an ideal strategy for being healthy. To my viewpoint, the traditional answer to that would be using something like a marine-based algae, but it's only DHA. It's not balanced with the EPA and some of the other fatty acids, the higher chain fats, the 24, 26 carbon fats. So I don't recommend that. I just recommend getting animal. I mean, to me, probably one of the healthiest diets around is a vegan diet or a vegetarian diet that's eating fish, clean fish. You just need some animal form of DHA, and it's best is from seafood. So, you know, if this is strong ethical considerations, then you don't really have a choice. You could take krill, but you know, krill's an animal. So, anyway, that's it. So anyway, thank you very much. Best of luck in all your endeavors.
Dr. Joe Mercola. Thank you, Joe. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dr. Mercola brought a bunch of people from the National Vaccine Information Center. He's actually right here in the front row. So thank you all.
Yeah, because what we do when we sell our products, 20% of our profits go to support these missions, like Barbara Lowe Fisher, Ronnie Cummins from Organic Consumeration, Charlie Brown from the Consumers for Dental Choice. So they're all here, and these are our philosophically aligned support missions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joe.